here too. Here we go.
Sorry about that. We actually were looking for him. Crazy. I'm like, why is he already over there? Because he's on time.
So I was talking about the mental portion. Of course, the mental issues, mental health, anything from anxiety to suicidal ideation. That part. Roxane and Ms. Roland. Lopez and Roland.
Hi there. Sorry, so we missed the question, obviously. So are you?
He just started kind of a general presentation.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, perfect. My name is Roxane Lopez. I'm the 6th grade counselor, and this is my 4th year at Kealing. So I just finished my first cohort of students that rolled through. So I'm so excited to be back at 6th grade, especially this semester because we're still still have our elementariness, and that's gonna wear off soon. So I'm trying to really enjoy that. And I think Christopher already went over some of the services that we offer. So I'll let Ms. Roland introduce herself.
And my name is Colette Roland. I'm the 8th grade counselor. This is my 3rd year here. So first year, of course, with 8th graders. So I'm kind of learning as I'm going. Thank you for letting me practice on your kids. So anything 8th grade, if I don't have the answer, I'm going to look this way and go into the process.
Well, one of the things I was hoping that you all could discuss is the breadth of what you do. So you don't just do helping the kids, but what you do as well, in addition to those things you mentioned, but schedule changes, things like that. You talk about the scheduling process and helping kids formulate, where the class they want to take, how they can change schedules, if they can change schedules, those circumstances where schedules can be flexible, things like that.
Sure. So typical, we kind of help the kids find their areas of interest. Of course, that normally changes about a weekend. And so we do have schedule change periods, normally the 2nd week of each semester, where they can do the elective schedule changes. They're normally posted online and in the hallways. The kids have to fill out the form, take it home to parents, have you sign it, and then we input the information in its first come, first served basis. And we try to explain to the kids that just because you're requesting this, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get in, because we have 1,200 plus students trying to get into that same elective. So that's the downside of it. But I mean, it's a process, but there is room for movement.
Gosh, I guess to add to that, so the typical time frame for students filling out completing choice sheets is in February. So I believe our plan is to go through the social studies classes, and so this would be for rising 7th and 8th graders. So that's current 6th and 7th graders. In February, we'll go to the social studies classes and help students complete choice sheets, and also help them complete a course request online. So now your students go onto this team's website, they log in, and they enter their course requests. So these would be their top, I believe, 6 electives, and it kind of depends on the grade level, and also like if they're in band and language, because that takes up more spaces. So they enter their course request, and then ultimately at the end of the year, well, once the master schedule is done, this is usually July, the schedules are run, and so their course requests that were put in there get put into the computer, or they're already in the computer, and they get all shuffled, and then we have a basic schedule, and then we have to go in and fill in any holes. So that could explain sometimes we get a lot of 6th grade parents particularly who are like, my student didn't get their top choice. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, well they got some of them, right? And then somebody went in with their choice sheet and then went back to try to fill in the schedule, right? Some things to know, if your student, let's say, was missing a major elective, like band or a language, we usually send out a letter at the very beginning of the year to ask you to come in or to contact us directly, because that needs to be changed. I think sometimes maybe because we know we're on summer vacation, we miss those letters, or so that's kind of a big deal, and we want to make sure that we change that at the beginning of the year. So those ones are our major ones that we do. So typically, like Colette said, we don't really do a lot of schedule changes throughout the year, with certain exceptions. Like there's some math changes that we have to make during the year. We call them administrative changes, because ultimately we want what's the best for your kid, and we know that a lot, and obviously you all do too, and your kids are taking high school classes, and sometimes we need to discuss whether that's like appropriate, and so So there's still possibility for changes, but usually it's a very important, it's a very good reason. It's not necessarily that my kid doesn't like this elective anymore. So yeah, that's some of it. I think, did I address?
Yeah, this year, I noticed there was some discussion that some of the parents during the summer received schedules for the fall, but not the spring.
Right.
So was there something going on with the scheduling, or is there anything that parents should be mindful of in terms of, something they need to address by coming in early?
Right. I think really the reason that we don't give the second semester schedules is we don't want kids to worry about what they have second semester in August. In August, we're really trying to focus on making sure to get basic schedules correct rather than having them worry about what they have second semester. If parents are connected to the cloud, they can already see the second semester electives, so they can kind of go through and see what the student has. Then in that second week of January, if they go to that elective, we really want the student to check out the elective, because A, they might be surprised, like they might like it, or B, they might have all their friends in there and be like, I want to stay in this class because I finally have a friend in my class, or my friend from elementary school. So we want them to check it out for a week, and then that second week, once that rolls around, they can apply for a schedule change, a lateral move in their electives. So that means it has to be available in A3. Let's say they don't like their elective in A3, it has to be something else that's available with seats in A3. So if you have concerns about second semester, we kindly request you to wait and let your kid check out that elective, and then at that second week we can look into making those changes.
So the complete year schedule is done. It just may not be any physical mail part, but if they want to see it, you can go online.
Right,
See
it
the
is
complete year
online.
schedule. Gotcha. And then, and then I have two more questions.
Sure.
Okay, one has to do with mental health issues, and if you could expand on that, particularly what we need to look for at home as parents, when we should encourage our kids to come in and talk with you. And then second, the broader question is what parents can do at home to help kids, sort of issues that we may not be sensitive to, particularly if we have a first kid coming in through middle school, and ways you think parents can be most helpful at home. In my own case, I have two 8th graders. So what I see a lot is, frankly, their friend set is more important in some respects to them than their parental set. So they tend to listen to their friends more than they might us. I know that's shocking. I'm going to tell when I ask my other parent friends about what goes on at home, it's like, yeah, well, welcome to middle school. But what can you do to most help your child? And particularly dealing with social issues that they may see on the phone and pressures that we may not see in there.
Well, I think you hit it on the head right there at your very last statement about watching their phone, the social media, the social whatever that's happening, not here as in the human experience, but rather here in the electronic experience, is what's really driving a lot of our students' issues. We have actually we all have had experiences with students who have been in fights electronically, and then they manifest here physically at school over something was said on social media. So first and foremost, monitor your students' social media. In fact, we would suggest get them off of social media. Just don't let them be on it until they're 30 or something. It's evil, it's awful, it's terrible. It starts there.
When you
Second,
when you say social media, you talking like Facebook and all those things? Are you talking about just like texting about drama class and like a
even that.
even
The group
texting?
text, yeah, even text.
Yeah, Facebook, Kik, Snapchat, you name it. Texting. It's pretty bad. It's hard. The laws have changed and make it even more difficult for students if they get involved in this sort of thing. And when I mean difficult, I mean criminally. So that's another thing that you as parents, you want to watch out to. So, nobody's phone is necessarily
What did you say? The loss of what?
The laws have changed and they've
Oh, the
made
laws
it
have
more
changed.
difficult for students if they engage in this sort of action criminally. So, and nobody's phone is necessarily theirs. I mean, literally, police or anybody can get into it. So I digress. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
What can you, other things that you guys can parents do? Watch your children, communicate with them, talk with them. And I know what it's like at middle school. I've been in middle school for 25 years. They love school. They hate parents. I'm never going to speak to my parents ever again. I did that to my parents myself. But it's really, really important that you be part of that communication, be part of that life, your child. Be nosy, don't let them be secretive about it. Help me out on this.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I have a 24-year-old who, he likes me now, finally. I have an 18-year-old first year in college, and I have a 15-year-old. The 15-year-old and 8-year-old, I'm in their lives. I'm sorry, I'm mom. So I monitor everything that they do. Because at home I'm not counselor, I am mom. And it's really important to be in their lives. And sometimes, you know, they get upset, like, you're in my business, but you're my business. So you just have to set those boundaries, and just like, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you another
Go
question.
ahead, no, go ahead.
Well, and expanding on that, so with Kealing being a school that, you know, draws people from all around, and we find that we're very interested in trying to stay on top of our son's use of electronics, and he doesn't use social media, but any kind of chatting that goes on, even with like video games where they connect. But being, how could we facilitate sort of having a social life, like a healthy, functional social life, given that we live, you know, there's nobody really around us that goes to school there, and I think that's what I see as being hard, because you're like cutting them off from
Well, and
what
so
they
you
can
really
do.
can't cut them off. I mean,
Right.
that's not feasible.
Well, I mean,
but-
or limiting it.
Yeah.
If there were more ways for them to hang out or do things where it doesn't have to be on the phone.
Unfortunately, the world that we live in, everything is done via phone. So
Yeah.
again, that goes back to just active monitoring and modeling healthy, you know, these are healthy friendships, these are healthy things to say. This is not healthy, you know, you shouldn't say this, you
So
shouldn't
more
say
like
that.
talking about what the communication is.
What that
as
should
opposed
look like.
even
And
if it's
then,
electronic.
just to go a little bit further, let them know, this follows you into your adulthood. Anything that you put on here, this can follow you. I mean, this is who you are. So let's be appropriate. The kids don't realize that.
I think to also add to that, one of the other things is encouraging our students to become involved in part of organizations and clubs. And yes, I know a lot of our kids have a lot of homework, and so it's sort of like school homework, sleep. But at some point, as parents, I think you should also be able to tell your students, stop, you need to do this, you need to rest, you need to close your eyes, you need to turn off whatever it is you're doing. But also encouraging them to be here at school, to be part of, you know, the drama club, to be part of, you know, basketball, whatever it is that they find an interest in. If it's not in school, also maybe explore something outside of school. Because, and then getting back to the whole mental health issue, what do you guys do? What do you guys look for? You're looking for those minute changes, not the big, huge changes, it's the really small ones that start to add up. And as they add up and add up and add up, it becomes something so normal to you. It's like, oh yeah, well that's the tick that he or she has. That's just something they normally do, but that's getting bigger and bigger and more and more and more and more often, that it becomes normal to you or to them, that's really the problem. The student who shows up, and I'm not going to scare you, so please listen to me just for that. The student who shows up to school with long sleeves 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 5 weeks, 7 days, 7 months, you have said in your head, parents will say in their head, oh, they're just normal, they just like wearing long sleeve shirts. And then we find out that there's cuts on their wrists. Those kinds of things. So you're looking for the really small, minute things that are happening almost on a daily basis, not the really big things. The kid who colors their hair purple, yay, that's great, that's a big, huge thing. That's an outward thing. It's those small little things that we're not looking or watching for. So it's that communication, watching, what are you doing, how are you interacting, those things. Looking at.
The question here. So, you know, several people mentioned about monitoring, watching, pay attention to this. So the physical, you know, it's easy to do, you know, pay attention. But the hard part is, you know, virtual, you know, social media, internet games. So those kind of hard part to really know what's going on.
Yeah. You want to give your kids space.
Right.
You want to let them try these
Exactly.
things
So
out.
you also want to keep this in, but you also want to know what's going on, especially virtually. That's the hard part for all the parents out there.
Yeah.
The challenge for us is like, you know, how do we do it? Is there any
Right.
way or resources we can utilize?
Right,
Experience to share.
and I share, because I think one of my biggest challenges is it sets the parents up to constantly be police for their kids, and it just, it's already hard enough sometimes having that relationship with kids, but when it becomes so adversarial that you're policing all the time, you put your phone out before you go to bed, keep your phone out of your bedroom when you're studying, keep your doors open, whatever the case may be, and you can manage technically you can manage your internet at home, but they still get cell service. I mean, like, there's constantly the content pushers are far more savvy about how they reach your kids
sure.
than I could ever be. And other than just taking it away or shutting down their service, which is extreme and frankly does put them at odds with most of their peer group, it's very difficult to stay on even keel and keep up with kids. So you see a lot of kids. Like, what is the most effective? I'm just interested in, like, in terms of technique, what's the most effective way of managing that in your experience? And B, once you've already kind of given them those keys to the kingdom in terms of having a phone and all the rest of that stuff, how do you manage it in such a way, understanding that you may not be able to get to all the corners of the world, how do you manage it in such a way that you can keep a healthy relationship with your kids and not be adversarial?
I think you're asking the $1 million question, right? I mean, that is the question that I think all parents are really struggling with. And I think it's especially difficult with some of our kids because the way that they speak and behave has a very mature tone. And sometimes I think we want to give our students a lot of leeway, or a little bit more, because we want to have that relationship with them where they can confide in you. We want to keep that relationship. But you also, and this is only, I think, in our experience, and so sometimes although we serve 400 kids each, we serve all the student population, sometimes we see a very minute population, or we're doing individual counseling with students who are kind of on the more severe side, right? If you think of the bell curve, we're dealing with this part, and probably not this part, parents are able to kind of manage and figure it out, right? But this group that we see we do see that parents have to really, and it does put you at odds. There's that tension there where you do have to, we encourage you to monitor more, and I guess I don't know how to answer that question of how you're going to keep on maintaining that relationship. So hopefully some parents can chime in.
Well, it also it's so important here, but we're almost preaching to the crowd here.
Yeah,
we're preaching to the choir. And I want to make this clear, electronics are not the evil one. I just said that's where I started. That's where my talk started. That's not the evil, because it's in my pocket. You guys have yours, I'm sure. There has to be, I think for some point, we see our biggest problems where parents are wanting to be their kids' friends and not being parents. This isn't the issue here. If it was, you wouldn't be here. You want to be involved in your kids' lives. You want to be supported. Those kinds of issues are harder. That's that small part of the bell curve that we're seeing. We're seeing parents who don't want to be part of their kids' lives, manage, monitor, and be their parents. So, again, it is a $1 million question. How do you answer that?
There's also, and I forgot to bring the flyer, but they are doing, our McCallum vertical team, we're part of the McCallum vertical team because we feed into McCallum. Anybody who's zoned to Kealing, or not anybody, but a large percentage of kids who are zoned to us end up going to McCallum. The McCallum vertical team is sponsoring a film called Screenagers. You might have heard of that. And it's a very interesting documentary. It's about, I think, an hour long. And they're having 2 showings at 5:30 and 7 p.m. on, I forgot the date. I put it on our website and I forgot the date, but I'll come back and bring the flyer. But that actually addresses some of the issues that we're talking about. It's like how do you manage screen time? What is the effect of these kids having too much screen time? And so it addresses maybe some of what you're talking about.
And on that, I'd say Screenagers, I know the woman who runs as a physician out in California, and it's very thoughtful. The movie's very good. But they also have a weekly newsletter where she raises topics to talk about at home, which is really useful.
Oh,
so every Tuesday she sent out an email saying, okay, let's talk about this. And this one, I didn't even know about this, and it was really useful because the topic, it was a social site called like To Be Honest or something like that, which was designed, so you may want to talk about this. So it's like To Be Honest, TBH, and why it died and why it wasn't successful. And it was like really hot for a couple of weeks, and it was this social media website that was, I had no idea it existed. I didn't even know my kids knew about it. When I raised it, both the kids like chimed in, they were talking about it. And it was designed to be sort of a counterpoint to social media that was negative. And it was an anonymous, it's a website where your kids can send anonymous messages to other kids that are positive in nature. Like, put in amongst these 4 people who's most likely to succeed or who's friendliest or something like that. But it ran out of questions to ask, and it started to get repetitive, so it lost traction with the teens and sort of died and went away. And so the topic of discussion is, do you have any experience with this? Are there other websites or other media that's positive in nature? What are your experiences with negative websites? What don't you like? And it was really interesting, kind of hearing from the kids what's going on. 'Cause they were sites I'd never even heard of. I've never heard about. But what was your experience with that, and what was going on at school?
Let me just say one thing. I think key is teaching your child to be responsible. With anything, be responsible, because they're going to use it. We use social media. What I see the most and what worries me the most is when I have my students who, I'll give you an example. And it's not to scare you, but it's to make you aware. I had a student go onto a website, it was a gaming website, and say something really derogatory and negative to another person that they did not know on that website, okay? This person tracked them and was able to find that they went to Kealing Middle School, find all of the information about them. That is scary. And it was a learning lesson for the student. You know, I was able to call them in because luckily the person was a teacher in the district. Who then notified me, hey, you have this student that is doing this, that sent me this. He needs to know how important it is that he can be found. That's the reality. That's the world that we're living in. Responsibility. Teach them to be responsible with the tools that they have, and they just need to know. These things can happen. Our job is to keep you safe. You know, we want to keep you safe. Be smart with what you're doing.
You had a question?
Yeah, well, I was just going to make a statement. Actually, my daughter, we got one of those old-fashioned flip phones, so she can't be on the internet, and she complains. But I'm so glad we did, and I know most of you don't, so you're not going to go backwards. However, it's harder for her to text. You don't remember you did.
Yeah.
You know, so one day I looked at it, she had 112 messages in there, and I'm like, it was like a group text.
Yeah.
So I emailed all the parents and said, take her off of your text. And I said, you know what, if your kids want to talk to her, if you want to talk, call them. Because we're losing the art of actually speaking to other people on the phone. When we were kids, it was like, you're on the phone too long, you know, you're a teenager, you're on the phone. Now it's like you're texting, and they don't even know how to pick up the phone and call, and I see parents doing it too. I mean, I have so many parents, you know, friends that are like, just call me. You know, I don't want to be on free texting all the time. So we're the models too for that, and I notice, you know, when I'm on it too much, I notice stuff. But anyway, I'm just saying, this is the message I'm trying to tell my daughter weekly is, you can call them. You don't have to text them. You know, if you're going on for 10 minutes on a text, pick up the phone and call. So, I don't know. I think that's really important to be able to talk to each other.
Last night on the episode, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, go ahead.
Last night on the episode of Modern Family, I missed the beginning. I don't know how she lost her phone. But she lost her phone, one of the characters, and during that time she had to order a new one, and it was taking a while to get to her. And during that whole time, she learned about flowers, and there were birds in the sky. She started loving her parents, that her dad was funny and mom was really great. And the second she got her phone, it all disappeared. Anyway, go back to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, one of the things I've noticed too about phones is that, cell phones, is that, and again, back in the day, when you wanted to talk to one of your friends, you had to call the house phone.
Yeah.
A parent would answer.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Hi, Mrs. Williams, you know, or whatever. So you had that connection, and you had to deal with an adult, and then, you know, that was a whole other social thing that you were learning. We're totally in the dark ages because we still have a home phone, and my son doesn't have a cell phone. And I guess my question is, do they have to have a phone with internet? I mean, I've just been like avoiding it, so.
No. I mean, my daughter has an iPad and a laptop at home. She can look up anything she wants at home. She doesn't need mobile all the time, and you know, it's for safety. It's the point is to be able to call. If you really need to text your friends, you can. Yes, you have to push it 3 times.
And my son will give out my phone number. I'm like, just give him my phone number and then call me, and then we can figure out a way to, you know, they can get the home phone number, and then they can talk, whatever. But
we've held off getting phones, and my girls are in 7th grade, and I said, there's a phone hanging on every single wall in that school.
Yep.
Yes, if you need me, you know where I am, you have my number, you have your dad's number. There are teachers there to help. There are people there in the hallway to help. If you need anything, you can find me.
Yeah, I think that's what, I honestly think that most of our kids individually can manage it really well, because for our kids, like the happiest times of their summers when they're at camp, and there are no phones at camp. I mean, you can't bring a phone at camp.
Yeah.
And so it's that FOMO, what they call FOMO phone, the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So they're checking in with peers to see what they're missing, you know,
Yeah.
basically. And that's what's driving a lot of the use. It's not like just like worthless content in my view, but it's a total waste of time. And I want to applaud the school, because I honestly think in the 3 years we've been here, 2.5, it's gotten better here. Because when we first came, our first year was much more permissive in terms of being able to use phones at school. And then last year, I think they started to develop a policy, and now it's hard to get on the internet, first of all, at school. I don't think the students can get on this.
They kind of use phone, I think, in the school. That's the policy, I guess.
Yeah.
It depends on the classroom what they're using in the lesson.
So I think the more the rule is universal, and their peers can't be doing it as
Right.
well, the better, in general, the kids feel about it, because they're not concerned about what they're missing out on. So I think
So
that-
everybody's missing out on it. I mean, it's
Exactly.
like everyone's on that same.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do want to applaud the school in that respect. I think the more rigid that rule is, frankly, the easier it is for the kids to deal with it.
Can I go back to the whole mental health issue?
Yeah.
In 7th grade, we did a series, it wasn't a series, it was a discussion with our 7th graders only. We will be doing something in 6th grade, something different with 8th grade, where we talked about mental health and mental wellness, better yet, and also how to be the one. Just so that you understand this, 7th grade's a really good place. If you have a 7th grade, you know their emotional and hormonal ups and downs. But it's a really great place for kids to understand and look and hear what's going on around them. They're also really good, and here's really good news, just so you understand. We have a lot of kids who come over to us and say, hey, my friend isn't doing well, can you talk to them? And that's wonderful, because you guys live busy lives, parents live busy lives, and we can't always see those little tiny minute changes, but their friends have been really good to say, hey, I noticed something different. And we've been able to catch a whole bunch of really great kids who are dealing with little small things that could potentially blow up to bigger things. So this is where we start with our 7th graders. Our 6th graders will be doing
Well, we do special, like, just special presentations.
special presentation,
different-
not quite sure we're doing yet, and then 8th grade will be doing drugs and alcohol prevention as well too. So we do those kinds of work along with our students so that they're aware of those other things that might be going on, and they may get a positive word from us as well too. Questions?
Yeah, well, I have one thing to say, which is sometimes kids don't want to go see their counselors, right? And I have a college freshman and a sophomore and a 7th grader. And they don't want to say that they need help. But these guys are amazing at if you just shoot them an email and say, hey, can you pull my kiddo in and just make it look like it's just a random check-in? And then they have no idea that you actually called or did anything. That works really, really well.
The checks in the mail.
It's no, I've done it, and it's great. And the other thing, so my question was, so if you pull in a kiddo, what's your policy for discussing things with the parents? Like if a friend calls, says, hey, can you check on my phone?
Let me tell you what we tell our kids. It's posted on our wall. There's 3 things. A student can tell us anything. It's confidential, and we even say we won't even tell your parents unless you're hurting yourself, you're hurting someone else, or you know someone who's being hurt. And then we have to say something to somebody else. So just so you understand, that's where we're at on that.
Question here. So everybody knows, middle school, sooner or later, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade school get a phone, social media, whatsoever. It's a matter of time. So I guess every parent has a little thing to do before giving a phone. And you mentioned the 7th grade talking about mental health, 6th grade doing some special presentation. So one of the challenges, I think, for all parents is that those kids, it's not like they just on the social media just do things bad or see things improper. The reality is actually they were not taught how to speak properly.
Yeah.
So I guess it's for the 6th grader, it's a good place to have some sort of what's the proper way to
Right.
on the internet, on the social media, on the games, in the virtual world. That would be helpful. A lot.
That's a good suggestion. And we'll definitely take that into consideration. One of the main, I don't wanna phrase this improperly, that's why I didn't say the nature of our presentation, but part of the nature of that presentation I'm planning on is really about how we speak to each other, because we find that in 6th grade, students are starting to use like language that they don't even understand what it really is, and they're just trying to insult each other a lot. And so it's kind of, I want to figure out a way to phrase it. So I haven't come up with that yet. We do have the presentation prepared, but I want, like, we don't talk about suicidal ideation. This is the presentation. We say, this is your opportunity to be the one. So it's really putting a positive, like, not a positive, but a way that you can help, right? But so the presentation for 6th grade is regarding language and how we communicate to each other. So perhaps part of that could be social media. However, I will go back to what we were saying earlier, what both Colette and Christopher were emphasizing, was that part of that too has to be your expectations for them too. And you guys having a conversation with what you think proper communication is on social media. Because like ultimately, like, I lost my train of thought there. But ultimately, you guys are the main influence, right?
Yes.
And so we can say that we're definitely do our part at school, but also that needs to be something that's established at home as well.
Yeah. So definitely, the parents will do it. Probably it's the same information, but the reality is the kids will less likely to the information from parents, more likely from teachers, schools, peers. And the second thing is the idea about this is past summer. My daughter was in a summer camp, right? We have like 40 kids in that camp, and then they form a group of text messaging, right? So some parents go in. So it's amazing, how the kids talk to each other, and I can tell you, some kids just never expect somebody to say something, and then they go evoke, start to dress improperly.
Right.
And so that got me like, they never been taught how to talk, how to respond properly in virtual world. It's the reality. So most kids, like they were in 5th grade, they never been really in the environment, group talk, right? How to really read and respond. And then in that environment, some parents start to talk a little bit. Actually, you can see the amazing effect. In a few days, these kids talk much better. That's why I had this suggestion, if we have some sort of things to, say, hey, here's the purple to start with.
Well, yeah, maybe it's a way of integrating virtual like you're talking about how we address each other and the virtual conversations. And even that story, I know in elementary school, in our team, we ran assemblies, but the teacher would talk to all the students, and they'd have a whole conversation about stranger danger on the internet and virtual conversations. But even that information which I've had with our kids, like, people can find you.
Yes.
And not to scare kids, but kind of giving them information and the tools they have and being responsible in virtual conversations and how this can follow you. But I think you're right, like, I think the children are gonna respond. They might hear from us, but it's the teachers and the counselors that also have a connection, a relationship that they trust. And hearing it from a few places, it's like, I always want my kids to have friends with parents like me. Oh, please let them be. Stay mindful, but you don't know because it's a big school and the kids are, I don't know any of their friends right now.
Yeah, and I think that is partly a unique challenge of being at a place like Kealing with a magnet program, because the friends are distributed around Austin. They're not necessarily, in another environment, they might be able to walk down the street and be with somebody who's in your history class. That's not likely in this environment. If you're fortunate enough to have that, great, and your friend is close by. But most probably don't have it, and it is the easiest way to stay connected is through.
Other questions?
Me? Well, this is just making me think about something. So one of the things that comes up a lot in child development these days is about the idea that kids don't have unsupervised time, like they're very supervised, and that maybe some of this talking this way, it's the first time that a lot of these kids have actually had a forum where, until parents came in on it, they were experimenting with letting it rip, because in so many environments that they're in, always being supervised and they're always being monitored. So I guess I'm just curious and throw it out there to you that, you know, there are some people who argue that that's a problem, that kids need to have some of that kind of freedom so they can learn how to deal with situations in the real world. And I don't know if that's a way it's manifesting, or I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but.
So let me understand. So you're saying that the kids should have that freedom in order to.
Well, I'm not sure I'm saying they should, but I'm saying that there is a lot of sort of
Exploratory.
research or
Yeah.
people who are in this field who talk about the idea that in
That's
the
with
last
anything, you
few
know,
generations.
That's with anything, any new
Yeah.
toy. Here you go. Let me see what you're gonna do with it. And then as a parent, once you realize, oh,
Right.
they're
But
not.
they're saying that kids used to have unsupervised time. They went and played, and no adults were there
Oh,
telling them what
yeah.
to do, and they learned how to fight their
Yeah,
own battles.
That was
and
19.
deal with people.
That's
what, I mean, that's
Yeah,
there's research that talks about
Yeah.
it, I'm just saying, so,
Yeah.
but today, kids are generally supervised 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And they don't really get those opportunities to see what happens. I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not saying it's good or bad.
But and they're not really.
I don't know.
I mean, they're in the house on the phone, so they're not outside. They're not exploring. They're not doing those things because they're doing this. So.
Right, so they're pushing boundaries
Yeah.
the way that they can. I'm wondering.
Like
if
when we
that's-
prank called.
Well, I didn't, but yeah.
What do you do?
Some people did
Yeah,
that.
they don't even do that anymore. I'm like, go knock on the door and run. Go have fun.
Do they have, I mean, do they have freedom here in this environment at any time during the
I mean,
day where they're kind of just
I
able to
think
do
what
what they
kids would call freedom and what we would call freedom are two different worlds. If you walk into the cafeteria during lunch, it's the loudest thing you've ever heard in your entire life. There's a lot of freedom there. We don't have teachers over them listening to the conversation. And the monitors, our APs who are in there and the officers who are in there are basically watching. People aren't throwing food, people aren't fighting, that sort of thing. So there's that sort of freedom. But outside of that, a recess, and I'll call it just for lack of a better word, a recess during middle school, which I think is ideal. I'm one of those who would believe, yeah, you should go run and play, be outside, get some sunshine. In the constructs of a middle school schedule, where would that fit? I don't
So
know.
they get that once a week in advisory.
Yes, so, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
transition seems like if you're in the, just
There's a
walking
bit
into
of freedom
school,
during
you
this
see so many
transition.
kids talking and, I know after school, like, when my daughter stays for that homework or goes to the teacher's
Office hours,
class.
yeah.
Office hours.
And I know she's social, I mean, like, she comes home and she's so excited she saw so-and-so and she got her homework done.
Right.
So, I don't know.
And then again, offering the concept of clubs and organizations and sports and so forth, that's a little bit more of that freedom. But I hear what you're saying
Yeah,
in
because
the
there's always
construct.
adult monitoring
Yeah.
in all of those.
Back to a point, you know, this real world, you know, versus virtual world, right? In the past, there are more experience in the real world, right? In the real world, there are established rules, right? School rules, house rules, playground rules, you know, street rules. Those established, so the kids can do better because they have the reference too. But in the virtual world, not much of established rules.
Right.
So that's why they have this freedom, because don't have rules in mind to check against. I just kind of, my wild horse, right, from my heart, just start to do things. That's why it's so wild.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, in reference to the real world, if we have some sort of, you know, rules or reference for that, you know, this is the expectation, correctly. So when they do things, at least, oh, you know, against this is an issue.
Well, I
But
think
right
it's-
now they don't, so.
Right, but having those rules in place, it has to be somebody to enforce it, right?
Right. Are
And
you
so
gonna
that's
enforce
the
it?
thing
That's
with,
the difficult part.
yeah, like being out in the community, or if you're at school, like you can test those boundaries, but somebody will always kind of come back and put you in check once you've gone too far.
Yes.
And so the dangerous thing with the cell phones and with the internet is that, yeah, it's freedom and we might put boundaries, but who's gonna put them in check? And that's kind of where, you know, we do come in there when we find out of those things, or we tell our assistant principals and our principals to come help with something that's, if we know that students have gone past a boundary that's not safe, then we make sure to tell somebody, and also to tell you, because you need to know that. But you're right, so that boundary needs to be monitored by parents. And of course, when we find out, we will tell you, and make sure to help keep that student kind of safe, because they crossed the boundary that's
And we do talk about appropriate communication. It's very different than when we were in middle school. What we find a lot when it becomes a discipline issue is when we had conflict, it was two people. There wasn't an audience. So you could end it and move on. And now with social media, stuff keeps coming back because there's a record of it, or egos get larger because there are 10 people in the conversation as opposed to just 2. And their frontal lobes are not fully developed. So there's not a, when we were in school, I had to write you a note, or I had to go and track you down, and there was all this think time. I wish there was a 24-hour delay on Snapchat, because oftentimes when the students come to us, they're like, sometimes they come to us right off the bat and on their own and say, I realized that was a bad idea, but I had already hit send. And so there are pieces in time and in size of audience that our kids now are dealing with that we didn't have growing up.
Yes, ma'am.
Follow up with that. I found out that it's hard to monitor my child all the time, so I took her book away. So it was hard the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because I'm just afraid that she's missing out. Like, she didn't get her friends text her or talk to her. So, but we are into 2nd month now. I think it's better.
Yeah.
You bring up something that's really kind of important that I think we've done here at Kealing, and that was homework. We heard people say, it's just a lot of homework. That's right. So we worked in dates in the year where there's just no homework, so you can spend time with your family.
I'm sure everyone knows about homework hiatus.
Yeah, really helpful.
So there could be times when at home, it's like, today you have no phone. Maybe this week you have no phone. Enjoy the world. There are flowers out there for you to smell, and birds in the sky, those sorts of things. And also, if I can come back to your thing, because I really love the idea of recess now. I love napping in kindergarten. But as adults, we don't have recess, we build it in. And my boss is going to hear this, but once I leave school, I'm done. I don't do work. I just don't. I really don't. And they'll say that's not true because Sundays you call us, did you check your email? But I really do, and that's sometimes what we have to do with our kids too. We're going to have to build in that freedom, that recess time too. That's what we need to do. Other questions? Yes.
I have just sort of a logistical question, I guess. In elementary school, if my kiddo, if a grandparent was really sick or we had a loss in our family, I knew kind of what to do to let their school know what was going on and that they were likely going to be having a hard time. What is the best way, and I'm kind of asking y'all and everybody, to let one of you all directly know if they go through something hard?
Yeah.
Either way.
Once we hear, normally what we do is we'll notify your child's teachers and say, hey, there's going through a hard time, maybe there's a death in the family, can you please watch out for them, they may be gone, etc., etc. Just so that your child doesn't have to worry about school. Let's face it, that's not where their mind is. So, yeah, let us know.
So y'all are the best point of contact for letting.
Right.
And you can tell us specifically if you'd rather. And sometimes the kids, I've had, I think 2 kids this year already tell me that they had a hard time with a death in the family, but they didn't really want it shared with the teachers. But I asked them if it would be okay if I said that you were just having a hard time with something, and if you needed to come down, to please allow you at any time. And that student in particular said that was okay, and that's pretty common. So that would be great. And we also, of course, if you have any concerns, even if I know that sometimes you don't have a lot of time to give us a phone call, shoot us an email and say, hey, can you check in with my kid about, X, Y, Z. And if you do specifically want us to try not to say anything, that it was you, then we can definitely circumvent that and do a roundabout way to check in with them. The only way I would maybe, sometimes I might be in a difficult situation if it's a safety issue and you're worried about your child's safety and the student isn't saying something, then that's sometimes when I do have to say, well, you know what, this is what somebody told me X and has this, so I need to know. Another thing for me came up recently, and I think that just as parents, it must be, I don't have children, so it must be really, really difficult to decide at home. But if you're concerned about your child's safety at home and wellness, then definitely contact outside resources. But if you need help with that, please contact us. But if there's an emergency, please take them to the hospital. if they're making an outcry, then please take them, or call 911 and they can help you. We've been in, I don't know how many situations, but a few situations where we've been reached out to, and we're not available on the weekend, of course. And something's been kind of, well, we're not really think they're going to do it, or hurt themselves. And then you wait until Monday, or somebody waits until Monday to say something, and it's really scary for us. We're like, well, why didn't you do this over the weekend, So anyway, that's kind of a segue. And I know, I hate that we talk about like such serious, scary things sometimes, but we just want to make sure that that you understand that your students' safety and well-being is our top priority.
And I know this is a phone number, but do you have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number on the website?
I do have it on, we have it on our website. Our website is kmsguidance.weebly.com. And when you go on our website, there's the last button over here on the right side. It says help. And the first thing that comes up are all the resources. So it's first of all call 911, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, as well as the local hospitals. Dell Children's is going to, in February, open a psychiatric wing, and it's going to specialize just in beds for children. I guess previous years, it's always been Shoal Creek, which houses a psychiatric unit for adults and kids and teenagers, which really wasn't very conducive for their rehabilitation. And so now Dell is building that, but it's really not going to be available until February. So a lot of two other places or two other resources, other hospitals they are private care hospitals though, are Austin Oaks and Cross Creek, and so those numbers are on there as well. So we have quite a few resources, and even some other kind of counseling resources that you could look into. But of course, feel free to call us, and we can help guide you through some of that.
For the sixth graders, will they know you at this point?
Most of them do. I have introduced myself to all of them in advisory, except for 2 classes. It just happens like I'm planning on going over there, and then I get pulled for something else. So I've gone to every advisory, introduced myself. Personally, I did at the big event in the beginning of the year, but I wanted to make sure I visited with them as a smaller group. And I told them how to see me, and when would be an appropriate time to come see me, and I've given them kind of a confidentiality expectation too, that they can come and see me, and our conversations are private, except for the 3 reasons that Christopher mentioned. Yeah.
But you don't schedule meetings with them. It's just if they want to come see you about something.
Right, or if we just have different concerns.
If someone else has
if somebody's
concerns,
seeing something and they're like, hey, why don't you check in with so-and-so, then I'll do that. But otherwise it would be like groups or doing larger presentations.
We do have a lot of kids who will just walk in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a bunch.
And that's how they can come see us. They can check off, they can ask to come see us, and we will try to pull them from an elective class and not from a core. Unless, of course, if it's an emergency. So I told the 6th graders, if you're crying, or if you're worried about somebody's safety, or if you're really angry and you need a spot to cool down, that's an emergency. So tell the person, Ms. Rivera, it's an emergency. I need to see someone now, and come. We want to see you now. But if it's not an emergency, we want to wait to pull them from an elective class. That's preferable. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if you guys have any questions individually about your kiddo. I mean, that's what we're here for, and we love, and I especially love meeting all the 6th graders. And even when they have tiny questions, I'm like, oh, so how's 6th grade? And somebody did ask me or tell me something they loved about 6th grade was that in lunch they got to talk to all of their friends, like that unsupervised time. And you're like, and I guess I probably shouldn't say this in front of all parents, and we get to exchange food. We get to share food.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that it was just so cute. I was like, oh yeah.
All they're doing is exchanging food. That is not bad. It's a growing part.
Yeah. So, but is that? I know we've taken a lot of time. Yeah, and I'll bring by the screenagers flyers too, in case anyone's interested. I know I'm going to go and kind of just help with the setup, and I actually haven't seen it, so I'm looking forward to seeing it as well.
And one of my colleagues, Mike Brooks, is a psychologists in town, and John Lasser, another psychologist. They just are publishing a book, and it's called Tech Generation, Raising Balanced Kids in a Hyper-Connected World. And actually, I could potentially get him to come speak. If he's spoken with lots all through grad school. This whole thing was always on technology, and that was in the 90s, like gaming, and he's just advanced, and he's incredibly thorough with, you know, research and literature, and so.
Great.
Okay.
Love that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, well, nice to see you.
That's
Thank
okay. We got one right there.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are specific resources for kids who are exploring different sexual identities than heterosexuality, or feel like they might be inclined to do that.
A lot of kids disclose to us, and because it's not in the level of hurting, we don't go any further than having discussions with them amongst ourselves. Here on school, we do have a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance, if you will. We call it Rainbow Connection. Lots of kids have been taking part in it just because they identify, they feel like it, or they just want to be friends with whoever's there. If students ask, parents ask, we'll be happy to pass on any resources that we have. Again, on the side of being a positive thing rather than a negative thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering, is if there was support groups, support structures kind of in place.
Rainbow Connection is pretty big. Rainbow Connection is pretty big.
Is Rainbow Connection like managed by a teacher or one of you, or what's it?
Miss Carolyn.
Oh, Miss Carolyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tend to, as a system, kind of keep counselors out of those clubs, so that students feel comfortable talking to them personally, and talking to more of a peer group about their experience at their age.
Yeah.
So Rainbow Connection is with Julie Carroll, and she teaches 8th grade English and sponsors that club.
Good question.
We have to go see your kids now.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to rotate over to Dee, who's Coburn, if you have any announcements, and then we can close out.
I'm short. It's performance week. Hopefully some of y'all have been out this week. I saw a Roland last night playing in the orchestra, and it was a great performance. Our volleyball players also played last night. Our B teams both won, so they are on to the next round of playoffs. Nothing major since the last meeting. Carter is off recruiting. It's recruiting season, so she's mostly not on campus 2 days a week. I'm visiting all 83, I believe, of the elementary campuses. We have 2 applications already. Really? Yes, 2 applications have come in.
You should get in just for being with me first.
Wow. Like there's no extra credit here. So it's that season is kicking off. We're also preparing for those of you who have more middle schoolers who are making choices right now. Middle school choice fairs are coming up. So in addition to teaching and helping kids learn, our teachers are also preparing to get the message out to current 5th graders in the district. But otherwise, we're pretty quiet around here.
How is the dropping off outside in the morning?
It's getting better. I think some parents have started to come other ways, which we're happy about. It's gotten faster. I was not out there this morning, but the last few mornings that I was out there, we got all the kids in the building. The most exciting news is that no one is dropping off in the middle of the street, which is really what we were worried about. We had kids being dropped off in the 2nd and 3rd lane and darting across traffic. So it's been helpful. We feel like our kids are more safe.
Can parents, I dropped off with my school this morning. Can parents drive into the back parking lot to drop off?
This part, where the gym is?
Yeah.
Yes.
They can
Yes.
When is the next one?
Oh my God.
It's gonna be December now.
Thanksgiving time.
Thanksgiving probably, yeah.
Okay.
Is it always the first of each of the 6 weeks?
It's the first Thursday, Friday. That's an A, B in every grading cycle.
Well, the first one is a great example.
That's an A.
Okay, so not, okay. So it could
So we
be
just got
the
lucky it
second.
happened on a 3-day weekend this past weekend in Chatsworth.
That was amazing.
The next
November
is,
13th. Somewhere near Kealing.
Let's say November 13th, 14th.
Yeah, because the 6 weeks is over before Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's gonna be.
Yeah, I was looking at.
I can't see it, but we'll put it out in Horner Herald this week. My phone is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements?
Are we still on track to have parent access to Blend at some point December, January?
As far as I know, the last information that we received was January, and that it might even be earlier. So I'm not expecting a delay, but if we find that there's going to be one, we'll let y'all know. I have to say this all the time because it's required and needed. There's a bond election, so please vote. Whatever your vote is, please make sure that your voice is heard with regard to the bond. I think early voting starts October 20, Dusty.
3rd, the same night as the screenagers, showing in the county.
Oh, that's October 23rd.
23rd.
Other questions I can answer?
Next week for eighth grade families, Lhasa Roadshow is coming to Kealing, right?
Yes.
So that's next Thursday?
Thursday.
So Lasa's coming through.
Lasa's coming to Kealing in the evening. So
Before 8 grade.
you would know better than Gita, you would know.
6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8, next Thursday, here. Got it.
Following Thursday at Patton Elementary, 6:30 to 8.
Great. Thank you. And then Dee, unless you have announcements, I forgot, I'm sorry, PTA, which is.
We are in the planning stage for our community Thanksgiving meal. It will be on a Thursday evening, November the 16th, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Our elementary schools are getting their children ready to come and perform for us, so we're excited. We're excited. If anybody wants to join the planning committee, we're meeting tomorrow at 11 here in the library.
Thank you. PTA announcements, anything that you'd like to share?
So you've probably seen Emily Long everywhere. I'm Emily Long. Nice to meet you all. So we have a few cool things coming up. Many of you have already signed up to be a Secret Pal. Thank you. I think we have about 17 more people to go, but yesterday we had 10 right off the bat, and it was very great. So you can sign up for more than one teacher. So if you want to do one you know and one you don't know, that would be really, really awesome. Yeah.
So I looked at that list,
Yeah.
at that sheet, so how do you sign up for that teacher? We just email you? Is it-
No, it's a
click on
Sign Up Genius.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay.
And you just
I didn't
click
notice
on it.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
I just looked at the list, like the spreadsheet.
Oh,
but
the
there is a
spreadsheet.
way.
Yeah, and then
There's
you
a sign up.
on the Sign Up
There's a
Genius.
link,
So
okay.
if you go to kealingpta.org, all of that is on there.
Okay.
And then so on the Sign Up Genius, I have a link for the Google Doc that has everything those teachers are doing.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's probably what you're
Yeah.
looking at. So that is, we're doing it a little differently this year, so you're gonna wanna drop off your items the week of the 23rd. And so we have Monday and Tuesday, we're gonna go A through M, last names. In the programs office, there's gonna be a table, so we're doing it that way instead of bringing it to the classrooms. And then you've got N through Z, it's gonna be Wednesday and Thursday. So if you could just drop it off, the teachers will know to go and
Your
find
kid
their-
can drop it off.
Your kid can drop it off. So we've made it to where teachers can go there and do that. So another thing that we are doing, so sign up if you haven't, because it's a pretty special event. It's 4 times a year, and they get a little something special. Appreciation goes a huge way. High turnover and all of that. So let's mitigate that by making them know they're loved. The next thing is coffee cart. So we have coffee cart coming up, and it's on the
October 30th.
October 30th. So this is the best thing I've ever gotten to do here. It's super fun. It is around Halloween, so we're gonna
Probably dress
yeah,
up.
yeah. There's gonna be dressing up.
That's optional.
So you roll the cart down the hall and you open the door and you're like, would you like coffee or hot cocoa or tea or a homemade item? So if you're a baker, we would love to have your homemade items to give to the teacher. Because one teacher said, oh, I don't really need another H-E-B, muffin. And I said, no, these are my banana apple muffins that I made. And so she was really excited. That's when we first got started. So we're hoping to have help this year.
Otherwise, we spend like all day Sunday baking,
Yeah,
like
there's
a marathon of 9 hours, and it's a little good to have help.
But it's cute because we're like little baristas and they're stoked. So that's a really great way to lay your eyeballs on all the teachers and to get a little visual into your kids in their natural habitat at school.
And they'll love it.
And they love it. Oh yeah, to kids, they love it. I'm always like, I walk in, I see Lily and her friend is like, hey! And Lily's like,
And my kid's a ninja, I've never seen him. Like, I don't know what he does, he hides when I come around. Right. Yeah.
So that's a super rewarding experience. So we
need bakers and we need people to come help us the day of to make it go faster.
Yes,
so,
we'll take you.
Honestly, October 30th, like 7 o'clock will work in room 112A.
Monday, 7
Let's get your contact information. We'll reach out directly. So any bakers, we have a few items that we need, agave and stuff like that.
You'll see that in the Herald.
Yeah, it's also on KealingPTA.org. And then the last thing is Reflections Art Contest. So it is a PTA-sponsored art contest. So the first thing is you have to be a PTA member or somebody in the house. And then the second thing is your kid has to submit, there's rules through texaspta.org, and it's everywhere. KealingPTA.org will send you the link, you'll have all the information. But it's choreography, it's visual arts, it's photography, it's literature, it's filmmaking. Oh yeah, and music production. So it's a really cool way to just have your kids build a little smidge more confidence. So I think every time a kid has the confidence to even do one of these art contests, you got a little something for their back pocket, regardless of whether they make it on to the next level. So we do very positive assessing of these projects. I have artists come in from the community to assess, so they have real eyes on their work. Last year we had 2 kids from Kealing make it to our regionals, which when speaking to the woman who runs it on the other end, she said it's very hard to do. That is something that was very unique to Kealing. So you know the art teachers here, you know how your kids write. I mean, it's very impressive. So let's show them what we've got. So Reflections is due November 3rd. There's going to be a box in the program's office. And then, so if we have any artists in our community, creatives that don't have a child who is submitting, then I would love to have you come and lay your eyes on these and maybe jot down a few comments for them to grow with is the goal. So, any other questions?
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Don't forget to donate to PTA because their membership drive goes up. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Great discussion.
Oh yes, for secret health, don't forget to put the teacher's first and last name on the item before you leave it. No, you don't need a figuring number.
Nope.